Hey everyone, welcome back to the review show where keeping it real goes right. Welcome back to this live review of AEW Collision. It is May 5th, 2024. It is the eve, I should say, of AEW Double or Nothing 2024, and we've got a whole host of things to talk about. Guys, as you always do, pull up, let me know what you guys thought of this show in the chat. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We got a lot to get to. We're going to be talking about the show, obviously, but we're also going to get into some interesting news going into the event known as Double or Nothing, AEW's 5th anniversary of their first ever pay-per-view. What a 5 years it's been. We got Eric Douglas in the chat with a bit of a hot take. Don Callis' superpower has superpower and it puts me to sleep. Well, that is an interesting take. I mean, look, Don Callis and the Don Callis family stuff aside, right? I mean, I've been critical of some of the things that has come with that entire, meshing together of individuals. However, the dude has heat. He's got a lot of heat. People love to boo the hell out of him. There were somewhere around like 3,000 to 4,000 people in the MGM Grand Garden Arena tonight, and he was getting booed out by every single person in that building, and it sounded like a whole hell of a lot more people were booing. But look, as long as Don Callis is going to keep getting these reactions and do what he does, he's going to continue to be on TV. One thing I will say about Don Callis is that I think one of the best places for Don Callis to be isn't necessarily as a manager. I think he is effective as a manager, but I think where he's more effective is as a commentator. His ability to tell a story and add to the story without taking away and taking the spotlight off of the competitors in the ring is, I think, second to none. There are not many color commentators in pro wrestling who can do that. You go look at Pat McAfee, it kind of becomes a sideshow of himself. You look at Tony Schiavone even, who I love Tony. I think he's a great guy, but unfortunately, he isn't exactly the person to I think in the most effective way, put younger talent over. Same issue I have with Taz, and the list goes on and on. I think one of the more effective people at putting people over and adding to the show without taking away from the wrestlers is Don Callis. Biggest proof of that, I think, go back and watch the match that Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson had at AEW Dynasty this past month. Go back also and watch what, in my view, is the greatest wrestling match of all time, Kazuchika Okada versus Kenny Omega in 2018. That was at Dominion. Yeah, that was the Dominion show, and he was spectacular. I think a lot of the magic of that match was also in Don Callis. Eric Douglas also in the chat saying Jamie was trending for a couple of hours. Do you think she returns tomorrow? That is an interesting question. We have not seen or heard really much from or about Jamie Hayter ever since AEW Double or Nothing last year. I was there live in the building, and I can say last year when she lost that belt, it was quite the shocker. I think that was like one of the most questionable decisions at the time. Little did we know the extent of what that injury actually was. She's not been on AEW TV since. She's never really been mentioned since. And if some reports are to be believed, I believe there have been several outlets who have said this, that Jamie probably is not going to be back anytime soon. That doesn't mean, though, that there aren't people who are at least around for the show, who are at least around for AEW Double or Nothing tonight, because there are a few names that we should expect to be around that show. And I think the three big names are going to be Juice Robinson, Britt Baker, and MJF. One of those we know for a fact is in Las Vegas, according to FightfulSelect.com. Sean Ross Sapp reported that Juice Robinson is in Vegas ahead of this weekend's AEW Double or Nothing event. He has been sidelined with an injury ever since AEW Full Gear in November 2023, and he was out with an injury that required back surgery. So he hasn't been seen on AEW TV since November, but Juice Robinson is someone who I think we could expect to see at some point. You also have to factor in, like, he also might just be there to support his friends. But another name that SRS reported on was Britt Baker. Now, Britt Baker apparently is not in Las Vegas as of right now. That does not mean that things won't change. I could very easily see a world where Britt Baker, is there and she's at the show and she makes a return. I think that could be a massive return if you want to do that at the end of the show. And then, of course, you have MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman. We've been waiting for this guy ever since the end of the year to come back. There were reports that he had surgery. Some of those reports may or may not have been exaggerated. I put up a video just yesterday kind of outlining everything we know about this so far, so go check that out for full details. But I think the overall sentiment in the reports from Fightful and other outlets has been that he's probably coming back, and he's coming back soon. Whether or not he's there tomorrow is TBD. But if you ask me, personally, it would make a lot of sense to find a way to have MJF return. Not just because the location for Forbidden Door this year is Long Island, New York, which is, of course, the hometown of MJF, but because right now AEW has been in a bit of a rut as far as their ratings and attendance. It's true. We shouldn't have to argue about it. It is true. And while MJF wouldn't be the end-all, be-all, one fix, or what is it, one-size-fits-all solution to this, he would be helpful. And he would make an impact. You need to have your best guys and girls, for that matter, out there on your TV show. And some of the people I just highlighted, or three of the people I just highlighted in MJF, Jamie Hayter, and Britt Baker, their absence has been felt. The absence of someone like Kenny Omega has definitely been felt. Recently, the absence of a Hangman Adam Page has been felt as well, even though that is not necessarily injury related. When you don't have your best stars, it hurts. So, going back to MJF, though, I will say this. I would say that if you ask me right now, which no one really is, I'm asking myself really, but if you were to ask me right now whether or not I think MJF is going to be at the show tomorrow or on the show tomorrow and making his return tomorrow, I would say I am genuinely 50-50 on it, but I would say, just to break that, I would say like 60% I think he's there tomorrow. I think it makes a lot of sense to have him there to make sure that, people tune in after Double or Nothing, that you have this big thing that people are talking about, a big reason to watch Dynamite. What the hell is MJF going to say? What the hell is he going to do? What the hell is the future of whomever he interrupts or confronts when he does return? That is what I think should happen. And if, in fact, he is ready to go and cut promos and do all that as they build up to Forbidden Door in his hometown of Long Island, New York, which I will be at, I genuinely think it just makes a lot of sense from the business standpoint, creative standpoint, and also just from a fun standpoint, because I want to see MJF. Like, MJF went from someone who I really liked and believed was going to be a future megastar to genuinely one of my favorite wrestlers. I think him and Bryan are probably my favorite wrestlers, to be honest. Like, like what he can do just as an overall package is insane. Like, he is the best at this. He's the best. Like, and I'm not just talking about in AEW. I'm talking about just anywhere. Like, I mean, Bryan is my best, but if I'm being honest, right, I don't think there's anyone in WWE or AEW who is as five-tool of a player, outside of maybe Bryan, as MJF. From an unbiased perspective, I don't think there is. I think he is the best. Like, because he can just do everything. He's a fantastic wrestler. He can tell a story in the ring. He can tell a story outside the ring. He can manipulate your emotions to the point where you can be crying 1 minute and then absolutely like saying the most horrible stuff to him the next. And his ability to cut a promo is second to none. I think he's the best promo in all of wrestling, in WWE or AEW. Like, he is the best. Whenever his contract is actually up, I promise you, WWE is going to be interested. But I also promise you that Tony Khan will do everything and anything. He will move heaven and hell in order to try to keep Maxwell Jacob Friedman on the AEW roster whenever it is up. I think at this point, like, we kind of all know he's re-signed. He did. And this isn't like a new thing. Like, he didn't re-sign, a couple of months ago. This is like when he returned at AEW All Out 2022. That is when he got like reportedly a big money deal. So he's like he is there. He is there. We don't know for how long exactly. It could be like 2 years, 3 years, whatever. But he is definitely there. Eric Douglas says, Juice screws Death Triangle. Potentially. That could happen. I definitely think there's room for that. Prayer circle for Jamie Hayter returning just in time for her hometown. If we get Jamie Hayter back for Wembley, that would be massive. I'm going to be at that show too. That would be massive. I would love to see that. Anyway, speaking of things I would love to see all of you guys at home watching this on your phone or your computer, hell, maybe even your TV. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Let's talk about Collision. This was a pretty fun edition, I have to say, of AEW Collision. I really enjoyed the hell out of this show. I thought that, for a go-home Collision, this was really good. There were a lot of things I loved. I wasn't necessarily a big fan of the not having the intro. That is one of the things I do miss about like the old Collider days, the CM Punk days, I should say, at Collision. I really do miss those cold opens when you had people, cutting promos, and it was like that Saturday night main event type feel. It was really cool. Don't have those anymore, unfortunately. You don't even have the opening of Elton John saying, and Saturday, Saturday, it's all right, baby. None of that, but it is what it is. We got Moxley to open up the show 5 years after, by the way, exactly to the day in the same damn arena. Jon Moxley comes out through the crowd, almost reminiscent of his debut in AEW when a literal paradigm shift happened in the world of professional wrestling as Jon Moxley, whose WWE contract expired that that March or April, whenever that was, and right before, when Moxley's WWE contract expired, made the jump to AEW, and wrestling has never been the same since then. Moxley comes out and gets an awesome ovation from the fans in attendance at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Once again, the same arena where the original Double or Nothing was held in 2019 to this very day. He's then interrupted by Don Callis. Now, Callis comes out and does so with some aggression. He obviously gets booed, as we talked about earlier, but he's aggressive. He blames Moxley for having basically mutilated him last year going into AEW Double or Nothing's Anarchy in the Arena. He blames him because every day in the mirror, he looks at himself and he sees that 24-stitch scar that Moxley has left imprinted on Don Callis' forehead for the rest of his life. Every morning he looks in the mirror and he thinks of Jon Moxley. And he says, even though all of that, he still thinks that if Don Callis and Jon Moxley were on the same side, If Don Callis and Jon Moxley were working parallel together, there would be unstoppable. There would be no Tony Khan that could stop them. He even pulled out there would be no UN resolution that would be binding, which a lot of thoughts on that one. But basically the sentiment was, or the message was, John, join me and we will run this show. Forget the EVPs. It'll be the Don Callis family and Jon Moxley. Moxley then, to a very cowering and fearful Don Callis, says, no, but if you really want me to, I could just beat your ass. And then he gets beat up by Konosuke Takeshita, who does a sneak attack. Takeshita then takes a steel chair, wraps it around Jon Moxley's arm, and crushes the arm of Jon Moxley less than 24 hours away from AEW Double or Nothing, when Moxley is in an eliminator match for the IWGP World Championship. Meaning, if Konosuke Takeshita wins, Moxley and Takeshita will fight once again at a later point for the IWGP World title. So, obviously, there's an advantage for Konosuke Takeshita now going into the match. Moxley is injured, and I thought that was a great opening segment. Fun, kind of called back to prior years of AEW, and also it built up a match for tomorrow. This is what you want from an effective go-home segment. I also just personally love the storytelling aspect of it, because this is calling back to things that happened before. Like we've seen this scar on Don Callis' head for the last year, and you know, I'm glad someone else has noticed it. That's all I'm gonna say, because it was like almost glaring. Like you knew at a certain point they would call back to it, and they did. So fun opening segment, fun time. Moxley gets saved by Claudio Castagnoli and the American Dragon Bryan Danielson. As we get into our next match with Daniel Garcia, Claudio Castagnoli, and a mystery partner taking on the Righteous and the Murder Hawk monster Lance Archer. Well, 5 of the 6 men come out. Last person that we need to come out is this mystery partner. And all we've been told at this point is that it is someone who is a pretty close friend for Tony Khan. And I was like, okay. I was thinking about it. I was like, who the hell is a good friend of Tony Khan? Who the hell is Tony Khan? I was like, it can't be Darby Allin, right? Because he's battling all these injuries, and you know, like that ain't happening. It ain't no way. Okay. Is it maybe? I was like, is it who could it be? I was like, Arn Anderson? No, it ain't Arn Anderson. It was never gonna be Arn Anderson. Was it gonna be maybe Jimmy Jacobs? That was who I thought it was gonna be. Honestly, I was like, oh, they're gonna bring out Jimmy Jacobs, give him like a shit ton of pyro. Nope, wasn't Jimmy Jacobs. It was the ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi. All right. I leapt out of my chair for this one, or to the couch. I was on the couch. I leapt out of the couch for this one. I was like, oh, no way. And then, you know, Nigel McGuinness reminded us all of the very true fact that we are, in fact, in Forbidden Door season. Of course, we are going to get some appearances by New Japan talent. We're probably going to get some appearances in the future by CMLL talent. We know that there's this big Forbidden Door Casino Gauntlet match, coming up on Dynamite on Wednesday night. So there's going to be that integration. So they're starting it off early, and they're laying the seeds for it. The president of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Hiroshi Tanahashi, comes out. Thunderous ovation. Go Ace, go. People lost their mind for Tanahashi, as they should. Fun 6-man match, though. Tanahashi, when he got in, he got a really nice reaction. And that was nice to see. And I think one of the bigger criticisms that many people have had, and I would argue that a lot of these people don't necessarily pay attention to the product, but one of the big problems people have, right, is, oh man, like, who are these New Japan people they're bringing? I don't know these New Japan people. I don't care about New Japan. Why should I care? Yeah, they don't tell me anything. Like the criticism is always, why are they introducing these guys that I don't know? Oh. Well, if you don't know them, and we don't introduce them, how are you going to know them? I just like, because here's the thing. There is a very weird, like, old school, and it's not just old school. I think it's like a casual wrestling fan, and that's fine. Like, you can be a casual wrestling fan, right? I don't have a problem with people like asking, like, who the hell is this guy? If you have not seen New Japan Pro Wrestling, you probably don't know who Tanahashi is. If you didn't see him in TNA, you probably don't know who Tanahashi is. If you didn't watch Forbidden Door last year or the year before, you don't know who Tanahashi is. That is fine. Ain't no problem with that. But when you say that it degrades or erodes the product for bringing in Tanahashi just because you don't know him, right? That's, to me, a bit of an unfair take. Because if you watch and go back and watch AEW, especially the last few years, they have done a lot better job of introducing, giving backstory to these New Japan talent. And I think one of the criticisms, again, that's levied the way of this pay-per-view Forbidden Door is, well, you know, I don't care about New Japan, so I'm not going to watch it. And that's fine. Again, if it's not your cup of tea, if you're not into it, don't watch it. Ain't nobody forcing you to do it. That's fine. But that does not mean that other people won't enjoy it. Because there is an audience for Forbidden Door. That is made abundantly clear by the fact that it is one of their most successful pay-per-views. People love to see these New Japan AEW supercards. It's the truth. It's a show that feels different. It's a show that feels big. It's a show that feels special. And until that specialness, until that aura about Forbidden Door goes away, I think the criticisms of, oh man, I don't know these people, which again is fine if it's like a personal thing and you don't want to watch it, that's totally cool with me. But when it comes, when it goes into AEW shouldn't be doing this because I don't enjoy it, well, not everything on the show is going to be enjoyable for everyone, right? Anyway, mini problem there with some of the criticisms levied that pay-per-view's way. Mostly because I'm also in the contingent that enjoys it. I also analyze wrestling, like literally daily. And I can tell you, having watched all of the collisions, all of the dynamites, especially the ones leading up to Forbidden Door, they 100% build up, for the most part. There are definitely some people they don't do a good job building up, but for the most part, especially for the big matches, they build up who these people are, for sure. We got Charles in the chat. Good to see you, Charles. AEW fed us good with Tanahashi for Collision. Can't imagine what they'll do at Double or Nothing. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. I think there is potential, for sure, to see, you know, New Japan talent at Double or Nothing. I think that there's definitely going to be that build up for that Wednesday Casino Gauntlet match. I think they want to preview that. They want to be like, oh yeah, Tanahashi's going to be there. You know, Ren Narita's going to be there. Hell, we're going to throw in who else can they throw in there? Like Cowboy Clark Connors. Gabe Kidd is a guy. I'm telling you, Gabe Kidd's a guy I would love to see on Dynamite. I would love to see him in that Casino Gauntlet match. We had a hint that he was Tony's friend, but we couldn't have guessed the magnitude of that friend. Yep. Well, two presidents of some major professional wrestling companies. Of course, they're always going to be close friends. So, shout out to Tanahashi, him, Claudio, and Mr. Dancing Man himself, Daniel Garcia, picked up the victory today. Fun match, nice match, cool match. Moving on. Moving on, guys. Let's talk about Adam Copeland. This is definitely something I want to get into because Adam Copeland, well, I know this happened. I'm doing this out of order. I don't care. Whatever. So there was a four-way tag team match that happened. It was the Acclaimed versus the House of Black versus the Infantry versus I almost said Sons of Anarchy. Toa Leona and Bishop Kong. So there's a 4-way tag team match. The House of Black was victorious. And as they're leaving, as they're going up the ramp in victory, the lights go out and we see Adam Copeland up on the big screen. And Copeland cuts an amazing promo. Spectacular promo. Fantastic promo. And he says that, it's almost like the House of Black was formed out of what I left behind, right? In some ways, Copeland kind of feels responsible for the House of Black. And he cuts this amazing lore promo where he's talking about how if it wasn't likely for him, the House of Black may not exist. And it was a beautiful, beautiful storytelling piece. And he says that, if he loses tomorrow night at Double or Nothing in the barbed wire steel cage match, he will probably just be forced to join the House of Black. And he would do it. But if he wins, hell, maybe he takes members of the House of Black with him. And then he name drops the House of Blood. And it opens up the door for a very interesting result at Double or Nothing. Because for the longest while, I've thought that, this is AEW's way of trying to get Malachi Black hot. They're trying to give him a singles run finally. After 3 years, they're finally trying to give him a singles run. And I thought he was going to win the TNT title. This definitely plants a seed of doubt in my mind. Because I'm sitting here looking at this right on the TV, and I'm just like, is this a way to write Malachi off television? Are they going to basically figuratively kill him off in this? Because we know that, Malachi is one of the people who is in the past at least wanted out from AEW. And if that's the case, is it possible that this is a way to do that and accomplish that? With Adam Copeland being the guy to take over the House of Black. And Malachi just goes off in the sunset. This is where kayfabe meets reality meets interesting storytelling. Because we don't know what's going to happen. And that is the beauty of the promo that Adam Copeland cut. That is the beauty of this type of promo especially. And I think AEW needs to do more of this. And we'll talk about it when I talk about the Will Ospreay promo that was on the show. But there's a lot to love about the way that this kind of resonated with the fans. Even in the arena, they were going ooh and ah. At this point, we don't know who's going to win. You can't say. Because will they pull the trigger on Malachi Black? Will it be the era of Malachi? Or will Adam Copeland just do Brood 2.0? DG22 says, doesn't Malachi have a contract till 2027? That is true. He does. 100%. He does. That is true. However, AEW has already said that, they know and they're well aware they have a pretty big roster. Tony Khan has said that, sometimes, when you grow as fast as AEW does, you kind of do it a little too fast. And that's why that's one of the reasons that he said for releasing people earlier. There is a chance that, Malachi just gets out of his contract. And that might be a thing that he wants. Genuinely. I don't know. But I'm not reporting that as news or anything, but it is what it is. Charles in the chat says, can't understand why AEW didn't went with House of Black versus Broken Hardy faction. I would have loved to have seen something like that. I thought that I've always believed that the House of Black had so much potential. And a lot of it was kind of, wasted is one way to look at it, but they just didn't do anything. I think Malachi Black in AEW has been wasted. I did an entire video on that on Wrestle Vibes, youtube.com/Wrestle Vibes. Go check that out. But his entire run in AEW, it's been unfortunate because he's someone I genuinely I love the way he was brought in. I think he was brought in with such shock and awe. No one expected it because everyone thought he had a 90-day non-compete. He comes in after 30 days, and it's just the biggest shocker, basically. It was like 1996, 97 WCW, WWE kind of shocker, like switching that quickly. And he has this amazing program with Cody. He beats Cody, and they do nothing with him. Nothing was accomplished ever since then. And if I'm Malachi Ray, I'm sitting there and I'm seeing that, I mean, maybe he feels some type of way too. We'll see, though. Charles in the chat says, I subscribe to Patreon. Awesome content there. Thank you, Charles. Guys, you can go over to patreon.com/Real Take Wrestling to get access to hours of exclusive content. YouTube.com/Real Take Wrestling. Stuff you won't see here. Early access, I should say, to vlogs. Early access to video essays when those go up. And some exclusive content over there as well. I'm going to be doing a kind of analysis of Tony Khan's media scrum after the show tomorrow. That should be up by Monday, so go check that out, guys. $5 a month, and you can get access to all that wonderful stuff. Go check that out. Thank you, Charles, by the way, for subbing over there on patreon.com/Real Take Wrestling. Anyway, Black versus Cope, going to be a fun time. We also got Kyle O'Reilly taking on JM, Big JM, who's been seen quite frequently on AEW TV. I think he's traveling with them, and I think he's a guy who could be a big heater for someone, I think, for sure. Charles in the chat says, the injury also killed Black's momentum, it seems. Yep. I think that also played a part in it, but I put a lot of it, most of it on bad booking. Like it was bad booking. Like that was not, like, he has not been booked well, I think, for the most part since he's come to AEW. Outside of when he came back, or when he returned, or when he debuted. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. Legit Layla Hirsch and Mariah May were in action today, and Mariah May, of course, doing her whole Toni Storm impression. I love it, by the way. Toni Storm's taken her under her wing. Storm herself has evolved her character past what she originally was when she came to AEW. But Mariah May, of course, is her pupil. So Toni Storm is making Mariah follow in the same footsteps as she was in, which is making for an interesting story, right? And I think this fits Mariah's character well. I love this. I think the character work that she's doing on this show is amazing. There was a spot here that is very infamous now, I think, in the hour since it happened, where Mariah May took. I'm just gonna tell y'all what happened. Mariah May took her bosom and put it into the face of Legit Layla Hirsch. To which Nigel McGuinness on commentary says, "Damn, I wish I was still wrestling." The on-screen love affair between Nigel McGuinness and Mariah May continues another week. But Mariah May picks up the victory over Legit Layla Hirsch. Good match. I think Mariah May obviously is great. Going to be interesting to see what they do with her and potentially the Stardom connection she has going into Forbidden Door, for sure. Moving on. What else do we got here? What else happened on this show? I mean, I know the main event happened, but I feel like I'm missing one thing. What is this? Oh my God, how did I forget about this? Willow Nightingale cut a promo on this show, and it was awesome. So Willow comes out, and I think a lot of this was kind of going over themes, the major themes that had already been laid out in the feud, but in a more cohesive and concise way, to push the match. But Willow comes out and cuts a really awesome babyface promo about, being the TBS champion, what it's meant to her, and, the fact that she's going to whoop Mercedes Moné's ass tomorrow night. And I thought she came out with the exact amount of fire she needed to. It was effective. It sold the match. Dope promo. I was into it. I think Willow Nightingale has megastar potential. Like, mega star potential. Like, I see her as, like, just an insanely big star. Again, we talk about the bidding wars and free agency. Like, look, if WWE comes calling, AEW is going to have to pony up a lot of money, I think, to keep her, because she's grown so much over the past 2 years in AEW. She has done so much. And I think tomorrow night in Vegas, MGM Grand Garden Arena, against Mercedes Moné, if I have to pick one upset for this pay-per-view, it is Willow Nightingale retaining her TBS title against Mercedes. Genuinely believe that. And the internet's going to go crazy. And they're going to say that they buried Mercedes in her first match back and all that crap. But the potential for storytelling and keeping Willow hot right now, I think, means a bit more, because you can always build Mercedes back up. And this isn't necessarily breaking her down, and her credibility down. I think this would help reinforce Mercedes' heel run, because she has to be a heel. She just has to be a heel. She's coming across as one. It's more natural when she does the heel promo as opposed to the babyface promo, in my view. I think that she should lose her first match, and then when she gets to the point where she's going to do the rematch, have Mercedes Moné use Stokely Hathaway and Chris Statlander to defeat Willow Nightingale, because that makes Willow look great, but it also proves that Mercedes Moné is willing to do anything and everything to win and retain that spot at the top that she was basically figuratively handed, right? Like, people are like, oh my God, Mercedes, she's the biggest star in all of AEW now. We'll see what happens, though. Got Charles saying Mariah nailed it every time she's on the card. Absolutely. Mariah May is a spectacular. That was a great free agent signing. That was a fantastic free agent signing. Like, a lot of people were kind of like, oh man, who is this? Those people ain't saying that now. That's for damn sure. All right. We also had the Lucha Bros in action tonight. They came out with some kids. I don't know who they were. I want to be clear about this. I'm not sure who these children were, whether they were Penta and Phoenix's kids or what have you. But what I can tell you is it was really awesome seeing that entrance. Like, came out with like two kids, and those kids were having the time of their lives, having fun. It was great to see. They did the whole Zero Miedo thing, and it was cool. We also had the Guns come out. Guns versus Lucha Bros. Fun little match. Then we saw Lucha Bros pick up the victory. And the most surprising and notable thing from this match, though, was Pac coming out and celebrating with the Lucha Bros. Because, of course, the bastard Pac and the Lucha Bros, as part of Death Triangle, will compete for the AEW Trios Championships against the Bang Bang Gang tomorrow. And he smiled. I don't think I've ever seen Pac in AEW genuinely smile. Like he's done like the thing where he's trying to psych out his opponents or whatever, but I don't think I've ever seen him smile like that. Like, that was crazy. And it's a testament to how much he's been built up as this just evil little like monster, basically. El Pentanita. Wait, that's funny. Oh man. But I'm sure that match is gonna absolutely kick ass. Main event time. Let's talk about it. The American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, and FTR on the eve of their Anarchy in the Arena match take on Satnam Singh, Jeff Jarrett, and Jay Lethal. I mean, we all know who won It was obviously the faces. And the story of the match was trying to get Satnam Singh onto his back. They were trying to get him down. He was a very powerful force in this match. They eventually did, and they picked up the victory here. Fun match, by the way. I think Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, highly underrated. They are great at what they do, being like, the jobber heels. Like, it's a role that people need on the show, and they fit that perfectly, and they do everything that is asked of them spectacularly. After the match, babyfaces won, and we get, the first, from talent at least, right? The first allusion to the 5-year anniversary of AEW. And Cash grabs the mic, and he says, 4 years ago in 2020, FTR came to AEW, and we made AEW our home. He said, I would bleed for this company, and I would die for this company. And professional wrestling is better because of AEW. Dax says a similar thing, sells the match for tomorrow, impassioned babyface promo, and I loved it. This promo was effective in getting across the message and alluding to the message that professional wrestling without AEW looks a lot different. And I laid this out in a note on my community tab. Go check that out for the full details about what AEW's meant. There is no Renaissance era in WWE if it's not for AEW. There is no evolution or revolution in professional wrestling without AEW. None of that happens without the establishment of AEW. None of that happens without Cody Rhodes, Matt Jackson, Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and Tony Khan. Without those guys, and of course Brandy and many others as well, but without all those people, none of this. Professional wrestling is in a completely different place. I don't think WWE is as motivated to do better without AEW. I don't think talent are getting paid as well without AEW. I don't believe that TV and other media properties are taking wrestling as seriously and investing in pro wrestling content as seriously without AEW. It changed the fucking industry. It changed the fucking game. Without AEW, you'd probably still have a large contingent of fans who are alienated, who wouldn't watch pro wrestling. I know personally, 2019, 2018, it was not a good year for me to watch wrestling. Horrible. Outside of New Japan, horrible. And even New Japan, I was broke. Barely had access to it. Had to watch it on those shady websites. Allegedly. But it was that time, right? And it was the first ever Double or Nothing that kind of changed that. And it in many ways changed the trajectory of pro wrestling. And it changed what pro wrestling is right now. There have been a lot of things that have gone wrong for the company AEW over the last 5 years. However, the biggest thing we can say about this company, and more so, I don't like, you guys know me. I don't like to give companies too much credit. But one thing I could say about the people who came together to start AEW and what AEW, the community, and the company as well, but the wrestlers, all of that has represented. It has represented a new perspective, a new look, and an entirely new way, in North America at least, to look at pro wrestling. It catered to an entire fan base that was alienated, and it still does to this day. I don't have this channel without AEW starting up, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying that, I wouldn't still be watching wrestling. I would still tune into WrestleMania and stuff, but wouldn't be as into it without AEW. Double or Nothing 2019 got me hooked in a way that was different. And yeah, 5 years later, we're here. So shout out to the AEW community for that. Shout out to the entire wrestling community for that, honestly, because there was a lot of groundswell of support for AEW when the company first started. The tribalism, all that bullshit aside, none of that matters. But 5 years later, still breathing, probably going to get a big TV contract. And we are on the heels of a fantastic Double or Nothing card. I'm going to be back here tomorrow night talking about AEW Double or Nothing on a live stream. So be sure to tune in, check that out, come through. We're going to have fun as soon as the pay-per-view goes off the air. We're going to talk about all things AEW Double or Nothing, who won, who lost, what was right, what was wrong, what I thought of everything, and much more right here, youtube.com/Real Take Wrestling. Until next time, everyone, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. I'm Omer Q for Real Take Wrestling. Be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.